This is Still Enrolled.
On into the latest edition of Still Enrolled, a Big Ten football podcast. As always, Ryan Hickey with you here. And do we have a great episode lined up for you? We're getting into part 2 of Big Ten win totals here for 2025. We're going to start off with some heavy hitters. Which teams will have seasons better than we expect, worse than we anticipate here? We'll tell you here in a little bit. We also have some spring intel, including we'll dive into one quarterback competition that is heating up. We got some details across spring football here for you. I'll give you some details as things do progress, as spring football is really now in bloom. We'll get you some updates from across the Big Ten. As you may have noticed in the intro, I said my name, Ryan Hickey. I did not say Brian Tripp's name. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see it's a one-person show today. That is because Brian Tripp is off. And that is because Brian Tripp has a huge assignment later tonight as we record this Thursday morning. And that is, he is the voice, the radio voice of the Frozen for the hockey, the college hockey national championship. He is the voice for it on Westwood One. So we got to have him save his voice. But in case you've never heard or even aware that Brian Tripp is one of the preeminent college hockey voices, I got a call for you that I want to play at the end of the pod here that you should listen to because not only is he the Frozen 4 voice for Westwood One on the radio, he's also Penn State hockey radio voice, and he had an outstanding call as Penn State made their way into the Frozen 4 that I think you absolutely should hear before we do get set for tonight's Frozen 4 action. So that is why Brian is away. He's on assignment, if you will, out in St. Louis. He'll be back with us next week, saving his voice. So we're going to dive into win totals here. Start the pod, part number 2. We did part 1 last week. So in case you missed it, go back wherever you do get your pods and also on YouTube, Still Enrolled. The latest episode we had last week, we went through alphabetical order the first 9 teams in the Big Ten, their win totals here. Illinois over, Indiana under, Iowa over, Maryland over, Michigan under, Michigan State over, Minnesota under, Nebraska over, Northwestern over. For explanations to hear those teams' numbers, win totals, and why we think either they're going to be better or worse than expected, go after this pod, of course. Go check out the part 1 series here for win totals, Big Ten win totals for 2025. I told you we're going to start some big hitters here, and let's do it. Ohio State, the reigning national champs, coming into 2025, tied for the highest over-under total in college football at 10.5. I think it's going under. This team, I think, is going 10-2, just like they did last year, for 2 reasons. Number 1, they have too much roster turnover for me to sit here and truly tell you they're going 11-1 or even 12-0. They have to replace quarterback, both running backs, wide receiver 2, 4 to 5 starting linemen from last year's offensive line, 8 starters on defense, including your entire defensive line. And one thing Tripp and I don't think I've talked about enough that I want to bring up here, they're also losing massive leadership across the board, offensively and defensively. That's going to be impossible to replace. Add in also, by the way, new coordinators for offense and defense, 2 new guys calling the plays. There's just a lot of change, too much change for me to just say, oh, it's Ohio State. Of course they're going over. Of course they're going 11-1. I mean, think about it. Last year for the Buckeyes, right? You could argue maybe outside of 2015 or on par with 2015, that was the most or one of the most talented rosters Ohio State has ever had in their illustrious football history. And if they went 10-2 in the regular season last year with all these changes, I can't truly sit here and tell you I think they're going to be even better in the regular season this year. Reason number 1 is for all the turnover. Reason number 2 is the schedule. I know we rarely talk about Ohio State's schedule because 99% of the time they are always the best team on everyone else's schedule. So it's not worth kind of playing the schedule game for the Buckeyes when they use your favorite in all but all their games. This year, though, the schedule is massively important and a big reason why I'm saying I'm taking the under. Look at these games they have to play. They got to go on the road to Washington, their first road game of the season, by the way. Hostile environment for all these new players kind of becoming starters and becoming relied upon for the first time, that's a really rough way to play your first road game in Washington. It's a place going to be jumping early in the season. You're at Illinois, a team we expect to be in the playoff mix. Home against Penn State. Oh, by the way, before we even get to these Big Ten games, you got Texas coming to town week number 1, and then you're at Michigan. So if you think I'm crazy, if you disagree with Ohio State and me saying that they're going 10-2, you think they're going to be better than that record, then you're telling me right now that out of those 5 games, at Washington, at Illinois, at Michigan, along with home games against Penn State and Texas, 2 top 5 teams in the country, they're going 4-1? You really think they're going 4-1 in those 5 games? I don't. I do not. So this team's still a playoff team. They probably still will get a home game in the first round like they did last year. But when you look at their number at 10.5, I'm taking the under. I think they're going 10-2. I think this is going to be a repeat of last year in terms of the regular season. And then it's going to be a crapshoot here come playoff time. But I think Ohio State, when you look at their win total, take the under. Now let's go to Oregon here, also with the Buckeyes, tied for the highest over-under total in college football at 10.5. Now, the Ducks have a lot of the same questions and concerns as the Buckeyes do, right? They lost a lot of talent from last year's team. But with that said, give me the over for the Ducks. The difference between Oregon and Ohio State. While they both lost a lot of proven talent and leadership, I think the Ducks did a better job in the transfer portal getting guys to where, yeah, they're new to Oregon, but they've also played a lot of football. So the transition for them in terms of coming in, plug and play, and I think playing at a high level quickly works better for them versus Ohio State. I think they got more ready-made players, proven players, compared to the Buckeyes. They did some work in the portal, but a lot of the starters here in 2025 will be backups in 2024 and in 2023. So at least Oregon, I think, has done a better job in the portal of getting guys ready to play right now that can hit the ground running, that have proven it, albeit at different schools, but still at least have proven it in college football versus Ohio State, a lot of unproven guys. And then I think when you look at Oregon here, I have them going 11-1. Not going 12-0 like last year, but I think they're going to just get caught up in the regular season, 1 game at Penn State. We'll get to that game here from the Nittany Lions perspective in a little bit, but outside of that, I think they will win at Washington. That's a really tough game, though, for the Ducks. You're at Iowa, really tough game, but I think they're more talented. IU and USC both come to town. I think Oregon, I'm taking the over here. I think we're going to see Oregon for the second year in a row back in the Big Ten title game, and they, to me, I think right now are going to be one of the best teams in the country. We'll see how, their quarterback situation develops. Give me the Ducks over 10.5 wins here in 2025. And then finally, in terms of the big hitters, the biggest win totals in the Big Ten and the biggest win totals in college football, Penn State, like Oregon, like Ohio State, also here 10.5. I'm taking the over. I think Penn State, similar to what I just said at Oregon, can go 11-1. What I like a lot about Penn State, why I'm believing, because if they go 11-1, or dare I say, 12-0, they would, for the first time under James Franklin, I think truly meet and even exceed expectations going to a season. Penn State's gone all in here in 2025, and I think they come up and deliver. Because when you look at the roster, right, you bring back Drew Aller, who had a rough end against Notre Dame, but I still think he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. You bring back the best running back duo in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Both can easily go over 1,000 yards. You bring back 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen. That's key. Key. I know you lose Tyler Warren, who's by far your best offensive player, and you lose Abdul Carter, by far your best defensive player, probably 2 top 10 picks in the draft. So you lose your 2 best players from 2024. Not ideal. But with what Penn State brought back, keeping denied Dennis Sutton, who was the opposite defensive end of Abdul Carter, who I think can have an Abdul Carter-like season in 2025 in terms of disruption, in terms of attention he's going to get from defenses. You have Jim Knowles coming in, and early on you're seeing reports of Zakee Wheatley, Penn State safety, kind of fitting in that Caleb Downs rover role. Now, he's not going to be as good as Downs. That's just disrespectful to the talent Downs has. He's by far the best safety in all of college football. But I think Wheatley can fill that role at a pretty high level where it's not going to be Downs-like production, but I think it could be close. He could play that position really well here. Penn State has some good production coming back in the secondary as well. They've recruited well. You bring Jim Knowles in, and Penn State's been a top 10 defense for the last 5 or 6 years perennially. I think Knowles can take them to the top 3 level this year, the talent they have coming back. And look, it's going to come down to the receivers, I think. It's going to come down to this season for Drew Aller and which transfer portal receiver, which even freshman receiver can step up here for Penn State. It kind of feels like that's been the one position holding them back the last few years. You got to get it right. You went Kyron Hudson from USC. You made a few other moves here as well. I think they can get enough production at receiver to be sitting here at 11-1 or even 12-0 to go in the schedule here. Again, Oregon comes to town, and I think that the time of when they play is huge for Penn State because that game is in late September. We just talked about all the movement for Oregon and the new faces they have trying to work them in. That game being in early September, not a month later, not 6 weeks later, works in Penn State's favor, along with them being at home, because you got to think Oregon's still going to be working through the kinks. Remember last year? Remember how the Ducks started the season? Close win against Idaho, holding on for DLF against Boise State. Now, I know Boise State was a better team than we thought, but still, like they got out of the block slow, but we saw Oregon every single week get better as the season went on. If they come out of the block slow again here in 2025, that benefits Penn State, who has more continuity, who's going to be at home, to hit the ground running in that late September game and get a win against an equally, if not more talented Oregon team when they do come to town there in late September. So that schedule quirk works for Penn State. The one loss I think they will have is at Ohio State. Look, they've not won there in a long time. So I'm still, even though I think Ohio State can go under on their win total of 10.5, I still think Ohio State deserves the benefit of the doubt when they play Penn State, especially at home. I think Penn State has to prove it. I can't truly right now sit here this early on in the season and be like, yeah, Penn State deserves the benefit of that. They're going to go in there and win. Now, that said, this is the best chance Penn State has of beating Ohio State in the shoe. This is by far the most talented team they have and the most vulnerable Ohio State's been. They should win that game. But I'm not going to do that right now because I think Ohio State still deserves the benefit of the doubt here. So I'm going to say at Ohio State's a loss for Penn State. And then you look at the other tricky games they have at Iowa. They've won there, but that's always a tough game. And then Indiana comes to town. Otherwise, Penn State's got a pretty simple, pretty soft schedule. Their non-conference is 3 cupcakes. This team should be bare minimum. The floor, 11-1. They have a real chance, a legitimate chance here to go 12-0. Give me the over at Penn State, 10.5. Okay, so we went from heavy hitters here in Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. 3 highest win totals in the Big Ten, 10.5 each. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum here. Purdue, their win total tied for the lowest with Northwestern in the Big Ten. Their win total, according to FanDuel, is 3.5. Depressing. And with that said, give me the under. Give me the under here for the Boilermakers. This is going to be a rough year. You look at their schedule here. They have so many moving parts. It's tough right now, especially before spring practice has even concluded, to kind of sit here and say how the team is looking. We'll get into more actually about Purdue here in spring intel, because Barry Odom actually did give, I think, some interesting analysis on what Purdue is going to try to do in the second spring portal window. We'll get into that here a little bit, but essentially, to at least spoil a little bit now, Barry Odom is not exactly, at least we'll say, thrilled about the roster it currently has. So when you look at Purdue coming in, all the turnover here, we'll look at the schedule. I think right now there are 2 guaranteed wins on their schedule. Ball State, Southern Illinois. That's it. Ball State, Southern Illinois, at least with those 2 games early, they can come out of the gate strong and hot. But you talk about a murderer's row schedule for a team right now that is really bad. Ready for this? They have to face USC, at Notre Dame, a team that housed them last year, Illinois, you're at Minnesota, at Michigan, Ohio State, you're at Washington, Indiana comes to town. You still got to play Rutgers and Northwestern as well. I think we're sitting here at 2-10. But for those Boilermaker fans listening right now, 2-10 is depressing. But here's the positive. You have won 100% more games in 2025 than you did in 2024. Okay, improvement. You go from 1-11 to 2-10. You know what that means? The arrow is pointing up. So give me the under on Purdue at 3.5 wins. I think they're sitting there at 2-10. But compared to last year, okay, some positivity. Let's go to Rutgers. Their win total here for 2025 is 5.5. And if you're watching here on YouTube, I apologize. I just realized I have not moved the lower thirds. I have forgotten about that. My apologies. We're going to get this back on track here going forward, starting with Rutgers. 5.5 is their win total. Give me the under. And I take a sip of water. My apologies. Hosting by yourself, it's a lot more talking than I'm used to here. But give me the under on Rutgers 5.5. Now, Ethan McManus, their quarterback, is back, which is good for Rutgers. He played well last year. The receivers, for the most part, are back, which is encouraging. But you do lose Kyle Monangai, who I thought was the heart and soul of that offense last year. When you look at how Greg Schiano wants to win games, it is by running the football and playing great defense. You take away a great running back, and Kyle Monangai was a great running back for Rutgers. I just don't know what that identity of the offense is going to be and how effective they're going to be. Not to mention, you got some tough games against Iowa, at Minnesota, at Washington, Oregon, at Illinois, at Ohio State, Penn. Like, you are playing 1, 2, 3, 4. You're probably playing roughly 4 of the best teams in the Big Ten in 2025 with 2 of them on the road. Not to mention Washington on the road is a very tough ask. Maryland's a tough game. At Minnesota's a tough game. So look at their schedule. Ohio should be a win. Norfolk State should be a win. Miami of Ohio should be a win. And I think Purdue's a win. So if you're looking at Rutgers right now, those are 4 wins, 3 non-conference and Purdue. Then you got to find me 2 more wins. If you're saying Rutgers over, tell me the 2 wins they're getting here out of this group. Iowa, Maryland, at Minnesota, at Washington, Oregon, at Illinois, at Ohio State, Penn State. I can't find it. I think they're going to be 5 and 7. Greg Schiano's done a good job here. I think, though, in 2025, they do take a small step backwards. Give me the under for Rutgers here at 5.5. Let's go from East Coast to West Coast. UCLA, their over-under win total is 4.5. Now, they've had a lot of changes. Coaching-wise, roster-wise, Ethan Garbers is out of eligibility. Justin Martin has gone to Maryland. So there's been a lot of turnover here. They bring in Tino Sunseri, who was the co-OC at Indiana. Now he's running the show and taking over for Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator for the Bruins. 4.5 is the number for UCLA. I'm going under. I just have too many questions. I have too many questions about the coaching staff, what this offense is going to look like, and too many questions right now about the roster. I just don't think they're good enough. And you look at their schedule, they should beat UNLV on the road, by the way. How about that? But UNLV should be a win. New Mexico should be a win. I think right now they have no chance when they play Penn State, Indiana, Ohio State, USC, Utah, Nebraska, and Washington. And so you look at, okay, 4.5 is the number. They got to get to 5. I told you UNLV, New Mexico wins. Those are 2. They're not beating any of those teams I just mentioned before. So now you have 3 toss-up games. You got to win 2 out of 3 versus Maryland, at Northwestern, at Michigan State. I don't think that. I think they can win 1. I don't think they can win 2. Give me the under here on UCLA. 4.5 is a total. Deshaun Foster, it's going to be, I think, a rough year 2 for him. They got to figure out an identity first and kind of go from there. But I think UCLA just kind of feel like they're just toiling in the wind right now. Let's go to let's go across LA here and talk about their counterpart here in USC. Their win total is 7.5. Lincoln Riley's had a lot of success recently on the recruiting trail. I don't, though, think that translates to success on the field here in 2025. Give me the under on USC 7.5. Right now, I don't believe in Lincoln Riley in the sense of he can call a game to win a Big Ten style. We saw last year USC was in so many close games and lost by a play or a drive, mostly because of Lincoln Riley's stubbornness. This is a guy that we saw on multiple occasions. The running game was working and he abandoned it. Why? Because he wanted to throw the football. He's a coach to me that wants to win in a certain way, and he'd rather win in a certain way than win, period. And so going into 2025, I just can't believe that Riley's going to be able to put this team in position, especially offensively, to where he can call and adjust to a game and lean on your running game more. I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he wants to do it. I don't think he's capable of doing it. So you look at their schedule here. They play Missouri State. Hot take here. That's a win. You play Georgia Southern. That's a win. You're at Purdue. You play Northwestern, and you play UCLA. Those are 5 wins on USC's schedule. We got to find 3 more here. I don't think they're going at Illinois and winning. I don't think they're going at Notre Dame middle of the year and winning. I don't think they're going at Oregon and winning. I don't think they're going to Nebraska and winning. So we got 5 wins, 4 losses for USC with 3 games hanging in the balance. They got to win all 3. If you're telling me USC over 7.5 wins, you think that bare minimum they're going 8-4, then that means they are beating Michigan State, Michigan, and Iowa. I don't think they're winning all 3. They can go 2-1 in that stretch. That gets you to 7 wins, though. And at 7-5, that's an under on 7.5. Until Lincoln Riley, to me, can prove that he can call a Big Ten style game, not get away from the rushing attack, lean into what's working, not just fall in love with throwing the ball all over the yard and thinking that's going to be good enough here, especially in some of these hostile environments against really good defenses. Until he can actually prove he can do that, I'm not going to believe in him. I got to see it to believe it. Give me the under on USC 7.5. Let's go up north here to beautiful Seattle, where just like USC, Washington's win total here is also 7.5. I'm very bullish on the Huskies. If you listened to the pod a few weeks ago, to me, they're my dark horse college football playoff contender that can mirror what Indiana did last year, making an out of nowhere run to a playoff spot. I think when I look at this team and the schedule, I think the floor for them is 9-3. Not playoff worthy, but I think they pull off an upset that I don't see coming. You're right there, 10-2. You're probably in, or at least knocking on the door. And 9-3, you're in the conversation. I really am excited about Damon Williams now taking over full time. They have a good complement of weapons around him. That they are an elite home game, haven't lost a home game in 3 years. And I think they'll be better on the road here in year number 2 under Jed Fish than they were last year. Basically unbeatable at home and extremely beatable on the road. I think they get better this year. So you look at their schedule: Colorado State, UC Davis, Wazoo, Rutgers, Purdue, at Maryland, at UCLA, at Michigan, at Wisconsin. I think they can win all 9, excuse me. I think they can go to Michigan and win. I think they can go to Wisconsin and win. You know, we saw them get smoked by Rutgers last year on the road. Rutgers comes here. I just think they're a better team and now better built to win tough road games than they were this year. So they do play Ohio State, loss. They do play Illinois, loss. They do play Oregon, loss. Now, the good news is, and this is where I get optimistic, and this is where I still believe that Washington can be in the playoff conversation. Those 3 games against, again, 3 of the best teams in the Big Ten are all at home. So if you can take care of business against teams you are better than in those 9 games I just listed, and you pull off one home upset, you're sitting there at 10-2, and you have a very strong case to be in the playoff. I said it before in part number 1, my favorite over-under of the part 1 teams was Illinois, 7.5. That to me, I think they are going 9-3 at worst. My favorite bet here, my favorite number, the one I feel the most confident in this part 2 of win totals, it's Washington. 7.5. Hammer the over. Hammer the over. This team is winning bare minimum 9 games. They'll be in the mix here for a college football playoff spot. So we're going in alphabetical order. We have done 17 teams so far. The last team we're going to hit on, the Wisconsin Badgers. This is a big year 3 for Luke Fickell. There's a lot of pressure on him. It does feel like a make or break year where I don't think he will get fired if things go sideways here in 2025. I think there's a chance, though, that he could get fired if things do, in fact, go sideways. I know he got an extension earlier this offseason. People are not going to be happy. The Badger fans are not going to be patient here if you're looking at another backwards year for Wisconsin. The number for the Badgers this year is 5.5. It's a low number for what is supposed to be a big year for Luke Fickell. And with that said, give me the under. Give me the under on Wisconsin, 5.5. I won't even go through the roster. Look at this murderer's row schedule Wisconsin has to face this year, and you try to find me 6 wins. They play at Alabama early in the year. Return trip for when Bama came and smoked them at Camp Randall last year. At Michigan. Ohio State comes to town. At Oregon. At Indiana. At Minnesota. Let's say, and I think I said Indiana twice here. At Indiana. Home against Illinois. At Minnesota. Iowa comes to town. Washington comes to town. I mean, you look at those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 games I think there are only 3 layup wins here. Miami of Ohio, they play Middle Tennessee and Maryland. So those are 3 wins. So if you think the Badgers are going to be bowl eligible, bare minimum next year, we are saying then you're winning 3 games. I'm going to go through one more time here. Find me 3 wins in this 9-game section. At Alabama, loss. At Michigan, loss. Ohio State comes to town, loss. At Oregon, loss. At Indiana, win a bowl, probably say loss. Illinois, at home, loss. At Minnesota, win a bowl, probably the most winnable game you have on your schedule. Iowa comes to town, maybe the same thing-ish, toss-up game. Iowa's going to have a better quarterback play this year. They play sound football. They don't beat themselves. And then Washington as well. We just talked about how I think they are, to me, a college football playoff dark horse here and going to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Find me 3 wins out of those 9 teams I just told you. And that's just to get to bare minimum 6 games in a bowl game. I think this is the under. But here's the optimistic thought I want to give you, Badger fans, is that I think Luke Fickell and Wisconsin can be a lot like 2024 Florida. Now, if you go back to last year, Billy Napier was on the hottest seat in all of college football. And I was in this group. I thought it was not a question of if he gets fired, but when he gets fired, in part because Florida had the toughest schedule in all of college football last year. It was brutal. Starting off with a home game against Miami in which Cam Ward went off and absolutely buried the Gators. And I thought right there he's going to get fired. But eventually they rallied around and they went 7-5. So their record for Florida, I think, will be better than what the Badgers' record is this year. But I think when you look at this schedule and how tough it is, if Wisconsin can get to 5 wins and can be competitive in a few other games against some of these top-tier teams, I think it could be enough to actually rally some confidence around Luke Fickell. Say, okay, you know what? Maybe we got something here. I don't think 2025 for Wisconsin is going to be about the win total as it is the competition level. Can you compete and give Alabama a game? Can you go to Oregon and push them? Well, Ohio State comes to town. Can you take advantage and, again, make it close? Make them sweat. Can you go to Minnesota and win a road game? Can you go to Indiana and win a road game? Like, I think to me, it's going to be about how you compete and how tough you are in these games versus just what your flat-out win total is. Again, Billy Napier, when Florida went 7-5, I think if you told Florida fans before the year, hey, if you go 7-5, is Billy Napier coming back? I think most would say no. But who they beat, how they competed, I think gave Billy Napier enough rope where he's back in 2025. And there's actually some feelings of positivity. Now, their quarterback, DJ Lagway, helps with that. But still, in Florida, I mean, Wisconsin's got, kind of a turnstile of transfer portal quarterbacks. There's no 5-star guy right there sitting that gives you positivity for the future. But if Wisconsin can compete, be competitive in most of these games, that to me will speak larger about what Luke Fickell is building than just looking strictly at the win-loss total and saying, okay, you went 4-8, you're out of here. So those are the win totals there for the second half alphabetically of the Big Ten. Just to reiterate, Wisconsin 5.5 under. Washington 7.5 over. That's my favorite bet of this group that we're doing here. Hammer the over. I think that to me is the easiest one, the one I feel the most confident in. USC 7.5 under. UCLA 4.5 under. Rutgers 5.5 under. Purdue 3.5 under. Penn State 10.5 over. Oregon 10.5 over. Ohio State 10.5 under. I give you my thoughts. I want to listen to yours as well here. So please, if you're watching on YouTube, comment in the comment section. The team you think I'm the most right about, the team you think I'm the most wrong about. Tell me who and why. If you're listening wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you. 2 ways you can have your voice heard as well. On Twitter, I'm there, Ryan_Hickey3. Ryan_Hickey3 on Twitter. Tweet me, we'll go back and forth. Or just find us on YouTube. Simple enough. Just type in Still Enrolled. We're right there. Click on a nice little logo page. Go to this episode and write in the comments there as well. The team that you think I'm the most wrong about or the most right about here and why. We'll kind of go back and forth because I don't want this just to be a one-way street. I'm not talking to you. I know we don't have a way to communicate right now just because this is a podcast and recording in my apartment, not live, but doesn't mean that we can't have a good back and forth discussion when this is done. Have this a two-way street, not a one-way street here. But those are my thoughts, again, on part 2 of the win totals. If you missed last week, go back to last week's episode. We gave you part 1 through 9, alphabetically, of all Big Ten teams and their win totals over or under. All right, let's get you some spring intel here. Spring football is really heating up. A few spring games and conclusions of spring football this upcoming weekend here in the next few weeks as well. So spring football is really heating up. And let's talk about a quarterback conversation, I think, or quarterback competition, I should say, that I think will be talked about all throughout the spring, all throughout the summer, leading up to a massive week 1 game, and that is Ohio State. This week, Ryan Day gave an update on the quarterback competition between Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz. And he said, quote, simply, pretty much neck and neck. That's Ryan Day's update so far on the quarterback competition. Now, not surprising because Ryan Day in his history as Ohio State coach, he has never named a starting quarterback before mid-August. He gets well into training camp, about halfway through roughly, before he tells you who QB1 will be. So this is not out of the norm. He's not deviating from what he normally does. Not surprising whatsoever. I don't think anyone was expecting him to sit here and name the starting quarterback for Ohio State coming out of spring. But here's why it's important internally, because Day will never say externally. But here's why it's important internally for the coaches and for the players to have in their mind we'll call it a pole position quarterback. The guy coming out of spring that you feel has a head start, has a leg up, most likely will be the starter come week 1. The reason why I think it's more imperative than ever for Ohio State to find this guy now, at least have the guys on the team and inside the building believe in one of the guys, is because when you have Texas coming to town, week number 1, when you talk about that schedule we just talked about where they have some tough road games and 2 top 5 opponents preseason, at least, and probably by the time they play them, preseason teams coming into the shoe, you can't afford to spend half of fall training camp figuring out a quarterback competition. You can't be splitting reps between 2 quarterbacks, having receivers catch balls from different guys, having the offensive line learn 2 different cadences and kind of way they run. You need as much continuity because there's so much change with the roster and who's calling plays. I know Hartline has been there, but this is now a new role for him, so it's different. With so much new going on at Ohio State, you need to have as much continuity going into week number 1 in a massive game as possible. You can't afford to spend half of your practices rotating quarterbacks in, having Sayin take 10 reps of the starters, then Kienholz taking 10 reps of the starters. You got to figure out your guy ASAP so they can get on the same page with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and learn the new running backs and work with the offensive line, have some cohesion there in terms of identifying protections, just the snap count itself, how they want the ball. There's so much that has to be figured out between now and week 1. You want to have or give the quarterback who's going to start, which I would assume is Sayin, week number 1, you want to give him as many reps as possible so they are as ready to go week number 1 as possible. I think they're going to lose that game against Texas, even though they're at home. It's a nice benefit, but I think Texas right now, even though they have their own issues in terms of losing a lot of production from last year's team, Arch Manning comes in right at quarterback. But at least for Arch, same offense. He's been there now 3 years, not learning, he's having the same play caller. So at least there is more continuity and stability down in Austin than there is right now in Columbus. And so that's why, at least for me, when Ryan Day says that the quarterback competition right now is pretty much neck and neck, it's not surprising. But I think when you look at spring football for them wraps up on Saturday. So this is they're concluding now. They're really kind of, for the most part, done with a large leg of spring work. You need to figure out who the guy is immediately to give yourself the best possible chance of winning week number 1. I know the season is not just about week 1, but if you can win that game, if you can beat Texas, now all of a sudden you open up a world where you give yourself such a big cushion, such a huge margin of error. I mean, think about it. If they lose to Texas, and I think they could lose to Washington on the road in late September when they go up to Seattle. If you lose both of those games, we're sitting here in early October talking about Ohio State having 2 losses and having to win out, beat Penn State, beat Illinois on the road, by the way, in order to make the playoff. That's brutal. That you talk about being put behind the 8 ball, that's really, really tough. So if you're Ohio State, I think it's imperative you figure out who your guy is, because you need to give him the best chance to win that opening game and give yourself a little bit of breathing room here for this season in order to defend your national title and try to go back to back. That's what we're here, and that's what we're talking about coming out of Ohio State. Let's go to Purdue. This is interesting here. Number one, we got the news earlier this week that their starting defensive back, Marcavius Brown, is entering the transfer portal. Now, you may think, okay, not a surprise. Why is this big of a deal, Ryan? Purdue guys, spring portal opens up soon. The spring portal window opens up soon. This should not be a surprise. Here's why it is to me. This is a really interesting case. So Brown was a starter last year for Purdue. Came over from Ole Miss a few years ago, played well in 2023, played 4 games in 2024, played well. Then he left the team for personal reasons. Now, he preserved a redshirt because he only played in 4 games. That's the number you can play up to. So he left the team for personal reasons. But even at the time when it was announced in early October, it was believed while he was leaving the 2024 team and season that he'd be back in West Lafayette for 2025. And so he came back, and now after going through almost all of spring says, you know what? I'm out of here. So for Purdue losing and Barry Odom coming in, losing their 3 best players from last year's team, transferring 2 of them going within the Big Ten, 1 to Ohio State, 1 to Oregon, Max Clare and Dylan Thieneman. Now all of a sudden you lose another starter, a former 4-star recruit who does have at least 11 career passes defended. So he's played some football. He's played well. That's another guy you're losing. Just, it's tough. Again, that also kind of hammers home the point of Purdue going under 3.5 wins this year. It's going to be a rough season for them. But here's also the other thing that Barry Odom said. I think it's interesting. Barry Odom was asked, he has 4 quarterbacks right now competing in spring ball to try to win the starter's job. He was asked basically how the competition is coming. How's it looking? Is the guy who's going to be the starter week 1 on your roster right now? Purdue's head coach said, quote, "Can we play winning football with any of those 4 QBs? I don't know that." End quote, before saying that he's not opposed to adding a QB via the portal. Now, there are some rumors on social media, at least, that if Purdue does go the portal route for quarterback and added another guy, that maybe they'd be interested, and I'm assuming this is mutual because his name's out there, in Aaron Noland, former Ohio State 5-star quarterback commit who transferred this offseason to South Carolina. Now, I don't, if he doesn't think he's going to beat out Lono Ourselves, which I don't think he will, and he wants to kind of come back to the Big Ten in the starting spot, that's a guy to keep a name on, and or should say keep an eye on for Purdue at quarterback. But I think right there, Barry Odom's answer at quarterback, and he also said that they have a couple other positions that are basically open that they're going to go in the portal to try to find. They got a lot of holes. A lot of holes to fill in 2025. No one's expecting anything big from Barry Odom in this upcoming season, but he's telling you right now, he's got his work cut out for him. It's going to be a long, long year. Now, I think eventually it will be positive. I think he will get this program back to respectability, but not in 2025, that's for sure. Let's go to Washington here. Their spring practice started, and the guy that's impressing everyone, a guy to keep your eye out here for, especially if Washington's going to have the year I think they can have, be a borderline college football playoff team. You're going to be hearing this name a lot then. It's running back Jordan Washington. And the buzz coming out of Seattle is this guy is lightning quick. You blink, he's gone. He's a home run hitter. Now, they have Jonah Coleman, their workhorse, rugged running back, coming back this year. But you talk about now what Washington can have in their backfield, with Jonah Coleman kind of being the thunder, Jordan Washington being the lightning. And oh, by the way, Damon Williams, who for the most part, from what we saw him of 2024 when he did play, a lot of it was running the football. He's very dynamic. He's very electric. He's quick. He's a great runner, has great vision. Now you have those 3 guys at any point in the backfield, plus some good receivers in Boston on the outside. Like that Washington offense, I think it's going to be fun this year. It's going to be good. I think Damon Williams will be a good passer, but also now adding this run game to take, by the way, pressure off of him in the passing game is going to be huge. Huge. And Jed Fish did point this out. I think there's also another reason for optimism here for the Huskies. He said this offseason they had a goal of getting bigger, like literally size-wise, not numbers-wise, size-wise. They wanted to get bigger at 2 specific positions, offensive line and corner, which makes sense when we go from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, more rugged, more physical. You want some bigger offensive linemen, and you want some physical DBs to slow down some of these passing attacks. And Jed Fish believes they got bigger. He's happy to see the progress at O-line and defensive back in terms of their size their toughness improving. Again, Washington right now, things are trending up, but that's the name. Jordan Washington, running back, lightning quick. Keep an eye on him. I think you'll hear his name a good amount here this year. And finally, last things we're kind of hearing for the spring intel. Let's go to Indiana. Fernando Mendoza is impressing. He's impressing his teammates. He's impressing Kirk Cignetti so far. And when you look at Indiana, that's a team that I think will, they're going to need their quarterback even more than last year. You know, they had insane balance. Indiana did last year in terms of running the ball and throwing the ball. And Kurtis Rourke really worked well off of play action. And defense is selling out to try to stop the run. Indiana, I think, did a good job this offseason of improving their offensive line to get tougher in the trenches, which when you saw them when they played Ohio State and Notre Dame, they were just physically outmatched, had no chance. But also, outside of the O-line, Mendoza, I think, is going to be asked to do more this year in the Indiana offense than Kurtis Rourke was asked to do last year. And so far, you're seeing Cignetti praise him, saying get the ball out of his hand and in rhythm early. He's getting praised for having a laser arm, has very good deep ball accuracy, and is feeling comfortable in the offense. And this is a huge thing because you can look at the transfer portal both ways here, right? It could be good and bad. It can promote, parity, but also maybe take away from some continuity. For Fernando Mendoza, now going from Cal to Indiana, even though this is his first transfer, this is now his fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. So every year he's used to learning a new offense, learning a new scheme, learning new terminology. So that I think is actually going to help him in Indiana because for a guy that's used to change, used to learning stuff over and over and over again, that should allow him to hit the ground running faster and become more comfortable with the playbook quicker because he has a system ready. He knows how to do it. So that's actually where that could work out to Indiana's favor, and you can have Fernando get on the same page, hit the ground running a little bit quicker because this change for him is something that he is used to. So that's some of the spring intel we are hearing. We'll give you updates as now we have a few spring games. Ohio State has a spring game here coming up on Saturday or spring game. I know a lot of these formats are going to look different. A lot of spring games that are happening over the next few weeks will not be televised. So we're going to try to do our best here to kind of give you some tidbits and some information coming out of those games here as well. So make sure to stay tuned and make sure you do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, still enrolled. The last thing I want to do before we get out of here is give a shout out, let you hear the golden pipes of our boy Brian Tripp, who again is out on assignment today. Today's Thursday. And by the way, apologies and thank you for your patience here. We had a little snafu this week in terms of our recording schedule. Thank you for your patience. But Brian Tripp, again, voice of Westwood One, Frozen 4 hockey, is getting set to call 2 games tonight, the championship on Saturday. In case you've never heard Brian Tripp call hockey play-by-play, I want to play this from you from Penn State versus UConn. Their Elite Eight game, the last game they played about 10 days ago. Overtime, sudden death, next goal sends the team to the Frozen 4. Here's Brian Tripp's game-winning call.
Into the attacking zone, drags into the slot, DeMarco fires! He scores! Matt DeMarco! Matt DeMarco! Matt DeMarco! Matt DeMarco sends Penn State to its first ever Frozen 4! Into the attacking zone, drags into the slot, DeMarco fires! He scores!
What a call. What a call by our boy. So make sure, find him on Twitter, find him on social media. Just use Google, honestly. That can be easy enough. Westwood One, Frozen 4, How Can I Listen? Tonight, I believe it's 5 Eastern and 8:30 Eastern are the 2 puck drop times. Take a listen to Brian Tripp and his pipes now. I will say, he did text me the other day and said he lost his voice. So fingers crossed, number 1, Brian's voice is back. And number 2, if it is, you're going to hear a great, great call. So give our boy some support. Check him out on Westwood One here as the Frozen 4 gets set for Thursday and Saturday out in St. Louis. And he'll be back next week. I hope so. If he goes out here and balls out in these 3 big games and loses his voice again, maybe we'll give him another load management week off here. But either way, Best of luck to Tripp tonight. He's going to have a great call. He's going to crush it, no doubt about it. Represent the Still Enrolled pod well, as he always does. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Still Enrolled pod. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending and choosing to spend some of your time with us right here talking Big Ten football. Again, we did now all 18 Big Ten win totals last week and this week. If you disagree with the win total we said and reasoning, please let us know. Again, tweet me, Ryan_Hickey3 on Twitter. Also, check us out on YouTube, Still Enrolled. Comment there as well. Be in the comments going back and forth. We'll have, we'll say, a civil discussion. I'm not a name caller. I'm not very creative, so name calling is what I'll save for some experts. But we'll have a civil, fair conversation about why we disagree, why I think you're wrong, why you think I'm wrong. We'll have some fun. Have some fun in the comments there on YouTube. I'll look for you then. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week right here on the Still Enrolled podcast.